These days, commitment to almost anything is being challenged. Throughout a swimmer's career, even in normal times, commitment can be tough at times. Some say lately that their motivation is lacking, but they need to build some resolve in their commitment to their successes. I've said many times in this podcast, swimming is a tough sport because of the level of commitment it takes to be successful. There are times when commitment is even heavier, and we're currently in one of those times. It comes down to what are you willing to do to be successful in this sport? How far will you go? How much are you willing to do to be successful? When I told Coach Fletcher about this topic, he told me it should be a 10-part series. So it seems that I'm going to be opening up a big can of worms talking about giving more of yourself and being more committed to your success right now on the Swim Coach Dad podcast. I'm Victor Swim Coach Scott Wisner. Strap in.
Swimming in the water, swimming in the river, swimming in the sea. I go swimming, swimming in the water, swimming in the pool, swimming in the school.
I'll say it again. These are the challenging times, probably the most challenging ever, or at least in my history. I think for many of us, school, be it college, high school, or even before that, is different. Not the best situation socially or academically, but it seems we could live with it. For most of the adults, work is different, but nothing we can't live with. Today I went to the store to buy something I needed, and other than wearing a mask, it was all normal. I walked in, found what I was looking for, went to the checkout area and paid, and I walked back to my car with my purchase in my hand. But when it comes to sports, that is the part we really can't live with, it seems. Oh, we've had to adapt. We've had to do more with less in order to train as close to normally as we can. Our commitment, be it swimmers, parents, or coaches, to the sport has been challenged more than ever. So there are new standards for what commitment means. When I'm asked, because of my advanced years, of course, if I've ever been through anything like this before, the only thing I can think of is when I was a junior in high school, two things came together at the same time and challenged all of our commitment to the sport. It started with an energy crisis that shut down our pool, and then it was made worse by 72 inches of snow in 48 hours and shut schools down from January 28th when the storm hit until February 9th, right in the middle of our season. While the city officials and work crews tried to deal with more snow than the streets could hold, when the streets finally opened back up, we were still faced with having no pool time in which to train. We ended up piling into our coach's pickup truck, which now would never be allowed, and we drove 45 minutes out into the middle of nowhere to a small high school where the coach there would allow us to share his pool space. We would leave right after school, get in the water an hour later, swim for 2 hours, get dressed, and drive home, so by the time we arrived back at school and went home, it would be well after 7 p.m., very late for those days. Some of our teammates, however, decided not to go because it really wasn't that important to them, and getting back after 7 o'clock was too late for some. For all 7 of us that made the trip, it was the best season of our careers, and we made some good friends in the coach of the other high school and the swimmers on his team. But that was a duration of a couple weeks, not many months as it has been now. But the point here is commitment comes in a wide spectrum of levels. We were talking this summer about our son's options for his college season. He wanted to finish his college swimming career well and wasn't sure if he would be able to swim this year. So the question came up of going another year either as a graduate student or stay another year and get another major as an undergraduate or go somewhere else for graduate school where he could swim. My sister was staying with us and chimed in about how he was getting an education and why did it matter if he was swimming or not. When it came down to it, she admitted that swimming, both in high school and in college, just wasn't that important to her. And so we get to the point where not everyone has the same level of commitment as others. You know, families are often known by the sports they do because people tend to do the same sports within a family. All the boys in the Bransky family in my hometown played lacrosse. Their father was a coach and their sister was the team manager, so everyone referred to them as a lacrosse family. My family growing up was a swimming family because my brother, sister, and I were all swimmers. Our father was a national level swim official, and our mother worked at the scoring table at every meet we went to. And being a swimming family, the level of commitment of my siblings and me varied widely. Even now, the level of commitment within my family for swimming is different than almost anyone we know. Perhaps that's misguided. Going to this effort just for swimming, few would find this to be something they would do. But after all, when I was a senior in high school, I left my parents and my home in northern New York, and I went to Iowa to live with a family so I could swim at the level that I wanted to be at. So in our family, it kind of runs that way. So with our family now, this is our 6th year of driving 80 miles each way to swim with Victor. More now that we're in other pools all over the Rochester area. My work colleagues are forever questioning me on why we do that when there are places our kids can swim where we can coach right in our area. And there are, but not at the level any of us want to be in the sport. There's a huge time and huge cost to this, believe me. And both me and my wife are both working full-time jobs outside of swimming. It is a family commitment we have made, so we're all in it. Now, I would never suggest that this is the level of commitment everyone needs to have, but it might be more of an indication of an extreme level of commitment, as well as evidence of maybe some insanity in our family. Wouldn't be the first to suggest that. Telling someone what his or her commitment should be isn't really the point. Oh, as coaches, we'd love to have everyone committed at a very high level. However, it's really a matter of individual expectations for success and the commitment given needed to be at the same level. You can't expect high levels of success without high levels of commitment. We are all sorts of goals, expectations, and aspirations from parents and swimmers. Many times, these goals, expectations, and aspirations don't match the level of commitment of the swimmer or even the parents. This is not necessarily a purely linear sport, meaning what you put in it is what you get out of it, but it does have a lot of that element in it. Not everyone can be an Olympian, but most can be successful relative to their effort and commitment. I hate to rant here, but I have to ask, so what are you willing to do to be successful? Are you willing to swim every repeat in a set with your best effort? Are you that committed? Are you committed to swim every set in the practice with your best effort? It's easy to say yes, but are you really committed to put yourself out there to swim every set of every practice within the requirements of the set as well as you can? But there's a factor here that gets in the way of that commitment. Are you willing to swim through the pain of hard training? And there is pain to it. We see that many swimmers are afraid to hurt. Some of that is out of habit. Some of it is a lack of awareness of what that really means. We do have a few swimmers who came to us without a clue of what physically committing to hard training is, and they have over time become, as we say, born again hard. Most are afraid to push themselves to feel the pain in the gut of swimming hard, and they back off. They let themselves off the hook to train hard. Pushing in practice, that's the start. To learn to push physically in practice. Mentally stay focused so that you're giving it your best. To commit yourself mentally and physically when it hurts. Are you committed enough to your success to stop letting yourself make excuses for stopping in practice to rest in the middle of sets or to find a reason to stop? Every practice we see swimmers stop in the middle of sets to do something, to get out and go to the locker room, but really, much of the time, that is just to rest. They're not committed to their training because they're afraid to feel pain from training. They're afraid to be too tired. And we need to be clear here. This isn't the pain of an injury or some other physical problem. This is the pain in the gut and throughout the body from exertion, pushing, going out of your comfort zone and being uncomfortable. We've had swimmers I've coached who were so into this feeling that if they didn't feel the pain in their guts in practice, they would be frustrated and feel they weren't giving enough. I know that Mike Burton, the 1,500-meter gold medalist in Mexico City in 1968 and Munich in 1972, he felt that if he wasn't in pain at the 1,000 of that race, he wasn't having a good swim. That's the feeling, the mentality that comes first from being committed to his success every day in practice and pushing hard every day so it shows up in meets. So how committed are you? Are you committed enough to put all your effort into the sets and distances you don't like? The distance test sets show us who is committed to pushing themselves mentally and physically in those swims. Even those who are not distance swimmers and even even the kids that aren't as talented. Believe me, we've had one swimmer in the history of at least the time I've been there at Victor who look forward to those sets out of the hundreds who have come through our program. But committing to do those with their best effort to allow themselves to feel the pain of hard training, even though they don't like what they're doing, shows us who's committed. We need to have more swimmers committed to pushing hard in those sets, digging in, and working at the sets they hate. Eddie Reese, the legendary head coach at Texas, often says, "They really don't like this set, so we know it must be good for them." And that's some of the truth. Some of the stuff that you don't like is the best stuff for you to work hard at. So are you willing to come to practice every time we have it, even though just showing up isn't enough? It is part of the commitment. Does the time we have at practice cause you to miss, not because you have school or work, but because you don't feel like swimming that late? Are you committed to your goals enough to do your homework earlier so you can swim when we are training late? How far are you willing to go to train? I'm not saying that everyone has to be crazy enough to drive nearly 3 hours a day to swim with a club. We've had swimmers leave our team for just to save 6 minutes of travel because it was too far to go to Victor. Are you committed enough to drive 30 minutes to train? 40 minutes? Are your parents committed to your success to drive you that far? It isn't easy, but it is necessary to train to do well in swimming. These days, I can name 20 swimmers who have moved temporarily from New York to go to swim in California, Florida, Texas, and other places just so they can train. They're committed to the sport enough to pick up and move, living with friends, family, and in the case of the college swimmers, with other swimmers, just so they can work out. And yes, this is just a sport, and there are, for most, more important things. But I've seen in my life that the most committed swimmers have turned out to be the most committed adults to their jobs, their families, and to their goals. I have several friends who are extremely successful in their lines of work, industry leaders who are successful in every way you can imagine, and each of them was committed to swimming while they were doing it. They have the work ethic that comes from a committed athlete. None were Olympians or national champions, but while they were swimming, they were committed to doing it as well as they could. And not all of them had talent either, but they committed to the sport, and so they made good on it. And that has carried through their lives. This isn't just about swimming. It says a lot about how committed you are to your goals and ambitions. So what about when we don't have practice? Are you willing to find another pool to swim on your own? Or are you fine just taking the day off and waiting for the next practice? Commitment comes from staying on track as much as possible, and sometimes that means going off and doing it on your own so that you can stay in the water. One of the things we often talk about is the importance of training in the summer, especially for college swimmers. This is the part where Coach Fletcher and I have talked about a few times. For some reason, many of the college swimmers believe they don't have to train much over the summer just to maintain for the college season. I haven't seen much success in this approach. For the most part, those swimmers who aren't committed enough to swim over the summer break are usually the ones who don't improve during the college season. They seem to fight getting back in shape over the college season. They spend time getting in shape in the fall, then they get to their midseason rest meet, and they come down again, and then they have to get back up in shape over the Christmas training period, and then they come down to rest for their conference meet. They never seem to get on top of their training because they didn't start out in shape in the first place. Also, many of the college programs we've had swimmers at seem to believe that training less is more. So training hard over the summer helps our swimmers get through the college season. We've also had swimmers committed to sports that they swam on their own in college to supplement their college practices, to give them what they needed. Was this something that should be encouraged? Well, probably not, but those swimmers went through a season of doing it the way their college program had it structured, and when they didn't swim as well as they felt they should have, they had to do something else. In every case, those swimmers did better, so being committed to their success and doing what was necessary did lead to better results. It just takes practice to do that, and that starts now when swimmers are developing as age group swimmers. Swimming during the summers between semesters in college can be challenging. There are jobs to go to, and there are times when swimming is harder to do, but I'm sure no one has worked 24 hours in a day, and I've found that if someone is committed to training, they find a way to train somewhere when they can. All swimmers who have committed to swim on their college team, they're also committed to doing their part to help the team be as successful as possible. Yes, an education is the most important part of college, but living up to the commitment of being on a team and doing your best is also important and needs to be acted upon as if it is a commitment. Being committed to training hard in the summer every day and competing in meets as possible to stay race sharp is how that commitment is honored. Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to give up some social life or to do what you want for the fleeting time you are a college athlete just so you can do as well as possible? Or are you content with going through the motions, lying to yourself that you don't have to train that much or at all, and that college swimming is different somehow, and you don't have to train that much like when you were an age group swimmer? That is commitment to failure, and we have seen that over and over. Okay, the point here is, if you want to be successful, if you have lofty goals, if you want to do well, you have to be committed to that. And that starts with practice. If you come into practice every day and you commit to working hard, not just picking a set here or there or a swim here and there to give your best effort, you'll improve much more that way. You'll get to reach your goals, and you'll walk out of championship meets knowing that you gave it your all, instead of kind of kidding yourself into thinking that giving partial effort or swimming one set or two swims in a practice is enough to be successful. You have to commit physically and mentally to what you're doing. I'm so impressed with some of the kids we have that have come in from other programs and have not, they hadn't trained like that ever before. And then all of a sudden they figure it out and they wind up swimming, training with commitment, with some dedication, with a lot of effort, with some grit, just because they realize that that's their way to make their goals. And you have to understand that it's a big part of it in swimming is putting in the effort in practice. Some people are talented, and I get that. And some people are just, they're doing it because, they like it or they like the people. But why not, while you're there, give the effort that you should, instead of coming up with some reason to let yourself off the hook? No, there's some things we do that people don't like. I get it. And we do a lot of IM work, and we do a lot of work that's hard, both physically and mentally. But putting yourself in there, it gets easier as you do it. Once you commit to training hard, it gets easier because every day becomes part of your habit, part of what you're doing. So that's where it is. You have to commit. You have to give your all. And you have to ask yourself, what am I willing to do? Am I willing to go to practice every day that I'm there and do my best? Because that's what's going to get you your goals. And the goals have to match up with the effort and the commitment you're willing to give. It isn't an easy sport because of the time commitment, and it takes time to stay in shape. And especially now, it's not an easy sport. It is easy just to make excuses for not swimming hard in a set or a practice, or to miss practice because it isn't convenient. It's not convenient for a lot of people. And taking the summers off after a long year in college is something that every athlete might think about. But swimming is different. It's like you're a structure that needs to be maintained, reinforced, the walls strengthened, and tested against the elements every now and again. But how committed are you to this? Are you committed to doing what is necessary to move forward, even though things aren't perfect or convenient? I'd love to be in the Victor pool with 8 lanes, unrestricted. We can put as many kids in the pool with flags and lane lines and the diving well to use, but we don't have that right now. So we have to figure out how to be committed as much as we possibly can. This is sort of like, testing your resolve, testing your commitment to the sport. When you go to practice, are you committed to improve how you are swimming the sets and the individual swims so that you're moving forward, or are you not as ambitious as your goals and not willing to hurt and to work it? As I said, the problem isn't with commitment. It's the problem of commitment and goals being far apart. That's the problem. You're not a victim of something unfair in the sport. You can be more committed if you want to. If you want to be successful in the sport, commitment is necessary. Come to practice ready to work hard and do the best you can. Then, at the end of the season, you can say you did all that you could to make the most of the opportunities to train and improve that we could offer. The first step is to be committed and to be willing to do more to make your goals. This is a bit of a rant, I'll have to admit, but thank you for listening anyways. Listen again next time when we'll be talking about the development of a swimmer in an episode called Late Bloomers. Until then, this is Victor Swim Club coach Scott Wisner asking you to give it everything you can to keep swimming.
I go swimming.